Welcome to Forensic Friday,
where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. Well, hello, forensic friends. We have
Hi,
an extra forensic bestie,
who we just adore, Miss Jeanette,
Jeanette Barich.
joining us today.
Bestie and OG. Actually, you're kind of forensic OG bestie because what y'all probably don't know, we've talked about Jeanette on here before, but I've been to Jeanette's women's training 3 times, 3 whole times.
I've been twice.
Uh-huh. She's the best. And we were at a training with her today, learning some of the new stuff in Colorado that we're really excited about that we'll share with you a different day. But we saw Jeanette and we told her about the case we're doing. And it occurred to me she's got to join us because she's our female offender expert and literally trained us on working with female domestic violence offenders, clients, offenders. They're interchangeable a little bit in our world. But Jeanette really has a great lens on working with women. And so I'm so pumped to have you here. First of all, you're good time. Second of all, you really do just know your stuff. And I'm dying to know what you think about this case. I thought of you when I saw it.
I know it'll be good. I also have to say my favorite moment today with Jeanette was when she's like literally running out of the training after it was done. And she's like, I might see you on Zoom tonight, but I don't know.
I'm like, Jeanette's 50-50. We'll see if she cowgirls up and does it.
But I don't know. We'll see.
What grabbed you was the case, partially. I mean, you love the podcast, but I think the case grabbed you.
Yeah, of course. And thank you guys for your kind words. And I just love you two to pieces. I tell you, I just love listening to you, and I want to hang out with you more and more. And you are as beautiful, if not more so, in person than you are on podcast. And I haven't seen it in like the video piece. So,
yeah, it's on social media.
I just like when I'm traveling or walking the dog or in the car on the way to work, and it's just like, oh my God, I got to call them. I got to say hello. So,
well, and what you guys don't know too is Tina. I mean, Nat and I have some competition right now with Tina because Tina loves her some Jeanette.
Oh my gosh, I bet.
You
know what? Here's the thing. I don't even want to compete because I'm going to lose. So I'll just be in a different category and we're good.
My mom's going to call you tomorrow and be like, Natalie, I love you
too. I know I'm going to get text messages and she's going to be like, Nat, it's okay. I still love you.
I joke that Nat and Tina have joint custody of me and Jeanette because if it's been a particularly hard day, it's only happened a couple times, but I will have them both on a conference call. Talking me down. So, you got to be surrounded by good people, and you are one of our best people.
Yes. Right. We adore you.
I love surrounding myself with you as well. And Tina, she's pretty amazing. So you guys are super lucky.
Well, it's really fun too, because Jeanette, I think you're such a spearheader of just girlness, and it's so great, and there's not enough of it in the world, and it's not competitive, and it's so kind and fun, and we're so much about that too. And so even I was joking with Jeanette earlier, Nat, that we gave her a shout out in the Wednesday episode because we had somebody named Jeanette in the timeline, and it's just good. It's just good to do this with you. So I'm so excited to have you. So we are on a time crunch as per usual, my friends, because I've got a client at 8:15. Nat's trying to clean out the front room for Grace's birthday because she started pulling wallpaper off the wall.
We're remodeling the whole front room. I think I already said this, so sorry if it's twice, but I woke Preston up one time, like a week ago, and said 6 a.m. And I said, I don't know how we're going to hide all of the unfinished ugly in our house, so we're going to finish it.
Oh my gosh. I have done this to Gare. I understand.
And he was like, it was 6 a.m. So he drowsily said, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I don't think he regrets it yet, but we'll see. But yes, I got to go clean that front room, lay paper down, and then we're painting.
Oh, it's going to be gorgeous. What color are you painting?
Just white.
Oh, it'll look good.
Yeah,
It'll
like
look really good.
the same color as our basement.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
All right. So I'm going to mute my phone because otherwise I'm going to have things dinging and I hate that so much. And so does Garrett. So we are going to talk today about Kouri Richins.
She's a wild case.
It's just a wild ride of a case. And
That
Jeanette
too.
loves to sink herself into a good case. And I cannot wait to get your thoughts. So I'm going to kind of lay it out a little bit, and then we're going to dissect it with our combined knowledge and our normal kind of disclaimer that we do not know her. We are not formally assessing her. We're not using any of the letters after our name today. This is for entertainment purposes and also education and prevention and all that good stuff that we care about. So, Miss Kouri.
Wait, Jeanette, do you know anything about this human?
I
She knows our
just
notes.
talking about her about an hour ago.
Okay, well there you go. So you only know what we've kind of talked about or what's in our notes.
I haven't even read the entire notes, so
Perfect.
it sounded pretty
Even
interesting.
better.
Yay.
Even better. Okay, so in Camas, Utah, I'm assuming I'm saying that right, a mountain town 40 miles southeast of Salt Lake City.
Okay, also it's in Summit County in Utah.
Weird.
Isn't that weird? I'm from Summit County, Colorado.
I imagine there's many Summit counties, but
I believe that, but you don't hear that super often. And I saw Summit County and I was like, no freaking way. And then I was like, oh, it's Utah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, continue.
Okay, I will. I love you so much. So, in a beautiful home, in the kind of community where your Instagram looks like a Pottery Barn catalog and everyone goes to the same church, this is where these two humans live. Okay, so Eric Richins co-owned a successful stone masonry business, and Kouri, what? Hang on.
Kouri.
Freaked me out for a minute. Kouri worked in real estate and flipped homes. They had 3 boys, and from the outside, they're the family that you kind of aspired to be. So Eric's really described as being hardworking, devoted to his sons, a man who showed up for other people. Kouri's kind of charming, ambitious, entrepreneurial, and they're really building this life together that looks really, really good from the outside. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So in March of 2022, March 3rd to the 4th, Eric's story ends. Kouri called 911 just after 3 a.m. to report that she'd found her husband, Eric, unresponsive. First responders declared him dead at the scene in their home. Her story to investigators, she'd made Eric a Moscow Mule the night before to celebrate closing on a property for her house flipping business. He drank it in bed. She went to comfort one of the boys who was having a nightmare, and when she came back a few hours later, he was cold. The medical examiner found 5 times the lethal level of fentanyl in Eric's blood and ruled his death an overdose. The drug was illicit, not medical grade, and ingested orally. At first, it looked like a tragedy. A young father, 3 little boys, and a grieving widow. The community mourned, casseroles were dropped off, condolence cards start to arrive, but investigators noticed something almost immediately. Kouri told them she had left her phone charging in her room while she went to comfort her son, but phone data showed it had been opened and messages sent and deleted during that time. Small detail, but it matters a lot in a situation like this.
Mm-hmm.
A lie told in the first hours after her husband's death. Why would a grieving wife lie about her phone? The question sat with the investigators, but publicly they said nothing. Not yet. So 1 year after his death, Kouri moves through widowhood with a purpose. In March of 2023, she published a children's book called Are You With Me? a story that follows a young boy grappling with the loss of his father. She appeared on Good Things Utah, which is a lifestyle show on KTVX's network, and told the host she wrote it to help her children cope with the unexpected death of their father. She did interviews. She talked about grief with the practiced warmth of someone who had never caused it. She positioned herself as a mother channeling pain into purpose. She told NPR member station KPCW in April of 2023 that the writing process brought a little peace to me and my boys. So, what are y'all thinking at this point? We've got this obscene amount of fentanyl, but nothing else is really coming out yet.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this mother who made a comment about her phone that wasn't consistent, which is, I don't know, not that uncommon. I mean, for all we know, she's just freaked out, right? Because she just lost her husband. What are you guys thinking at this point?
We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Southeast Counseling Center. Southeast Counseling Center is a 501c3 nonprofit mental health provider right here in Parker, Colorado, conveniently located just off major highways. We serve the whole family, from play therapy for kids to couples and family therapy, trauma treatment, psychological testing, and specialized groups. Access matters. That's why Southeast Counseling Center accepts Medicaid, Tri-West, and victim compensation, and also offers a community subsidy program to help people who fall in the gap between Medicaid and traditional insurance coverage. And because we're a nonprofit, every dollar donated by the community goes directly towards providing treatment services for people who need help. Prefer to meet at home? Telehealth is available statewide, so anyone in Colorado can access our services. To get started, call 720-842-5553 or fill out our secure web inquiry form at secounseling.org. Southeast Counseling Center, care that is accessible, compassionate, and rooted in the community. I mean, the fact that she lied, I think, isn't super common if you don't have anything sketchy going on.
True.
Like intentional lies, like I think people get their stories mixed up easily, victims of crimes and people who see things happen. It's easy to do that, but you don't often see someone deliberately lie if they have nothing to hide. So that's sketchy.
Standing out to you a little bit. It's the deleted text messages that are sending me, because I could totally see. I could see someone being like, I left my phone, in the other room, and I don't know, or what, I could see somebody getting confused about where their phone was, but to be using it and deleting things is interesting.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what she's lying about.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. What do you think, Jeanette?
About
how do people? Do you think that there's a typical way people respond when something traumatic like this happens? Because this is something we talk about a lot. Are there indicators early on that something's off, or do we need to be especially cautious after something happens? Because law enforcement puts a lot of weight still in how people respond right after something happens.
Sure. I mean, I don't really know a lot of the details about the situation, but I mean, there may be shame or embarrassment. She may have gone into her child's room and just left her husband to sell her closing of a house and scrolling the internet or something. But I think one of the things that stood out to me in some of this is like the overt and covert things that we're seeing. Like, it looks perfect from the outside and things look really good, but
Don't you get nervous when things look too good, Jeanette? It makes me nervous.
It makes me feel nervous. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
How long is this gonna last? When's the shoe gonna drop?
Oh, we had a client.
Gonna ride this wave while I have it.
we had a client the other day. It was so funny. He was like, we had a fight and I called her a bitch. And Nat and I just start laughing because I just so appreciate the honesty of a moment. Like just to be really authentic. I don't know what to do in a fight, but call my partner a bitch, and I'm working on it, right? But it's messy.
But we're not perfect. But when things
No.
come off too perfect, it's like when we have clients who come in and they're like, we never fight anymore. I'm like, that's a red flag.
Red
That's
flag.
a red flag. That's not good. That means you're avoiding
Yes.
because no one doesn't have, everyone has conflict. So
Yes.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
that's a huge red flag that if they say that there's no disagreement, we all have, hopefully we have disagreement, otherwise maybe I'm too passive. If
Yeah.
disagreement, and then I call passive people like my stuffers because they'll explode and it'll come out sideways.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
Well, one thing that I want to kind of suggest and put in your brains to be noodling on as we're talking this through, not just Jeanette and Nat, but you all out there, this kind of idea of impression management or performative grief, which I would argue women are much better at than men in general. I mean, we can fake all kinds of things. I think women just have a way of masking deeper things for lots of reasons. Sometimes it's survival. Sometimes it's to not be labeled a certain way. Like women have to be fairly resilient in general. And I think that does give us a little bit of a tool belt. Sometimes it can be used lots of different ways. So when people are getting the book and they're reading this book and she's kind of really taking up this space of this grieving widow who's going to support her boy as well and share her story. What she didn't know even was some of the things going on behind the scenes that investigators were starting to see and catch up on. And she was hiding a lot. And I want you to think about how much she was holding down as they were closing in. So the marriage had been under a lot of strain for years. So in 2019, Kouri had borrowed $250,000 without Eric's permission. That's kind of like red flag, right? In a lot of, that'd be the end of a lot of marriages.
Borrowed it from him?
No.
Financial.
Like a bank. Like got a loan. Got it.
Yep. By the time Eric died, she had approximately $7.5 million in debt and was paying $80,000 a month to lenders. I don't even know how that happens exactly, but I'm wondering if there was maybe some like real estate because she was in that arena. I mean, that's not consumer spending necessarily.
I know a little bit about this. So she was, as you said before, she was in real estate and she did house flipping.
Yes.
So it sounds insane to me, and I would never probably get into this, but I guess from what I heard and then read is some of that, like how much she was in debt is probably way more than what anyone would fathom as okay, but to be like a couple million in debt with this type of business isn't necessarily
not uncommon.
Unheard of. Correct. And the house that they bought that they were celebrating was like a mansion.
Well, and one of the things that I'm remembering
is a huge
that
house.
Even if she sold everything that she owned, she wouldn't have been whole. So you're so right that there's like an amount of debt that would freak us out. That's probably pretty standard in this kind of a business. But what happens is if you start, taking from here, taking from there.
Yeah.
She started bouncing checks to contractors.
Yeah. Well, yes, the goal with this house that they bought was that it was a mansion, but they were going to turn it into like this big, I can't even remember how they said it, but essentially like event center, like a place for people like to go visit. And it wasn't just like going to be, a fix and flip mansion. It was going to be something like an event, like wedding events, stuff like that. So their goal was to make a ton of revenue off of whatever they turned it into.
Mm.
And they talked to a business, to like a, I think their financial advisor, and their financial advisor said, if you can get it to that, like if you can turn it into, instead of it being a home, if you can turn it into what your goal is, then you will make, I think it was like almost 8 million dollars.
Okay.
So that was kind of their goal.
Which would have maybe saved their bacon a little
Yeah.
bit financially.
Yeah.
So by 2020, Eric's done, right? She was portraying herself to creditors as the head of a company with over 100 employees and had made more than $1 million on her last 5 deals combined. None of it was true. So he consulted an estate planning attorney, alleging his wife had engaged in ongoing abuse and misuse of his finances. He removed her as the beneficiary of his $500,000 life insurance policy and transferred their home and his business interest into a trust controlled by his sister for the primary benefit of their 3 sons. So he was quietly, legally protecting his kids, right? In the way that people do when they're afraid of the person they live with, but aren't ready to call it what it is.
Or are afraid to confront the situation.
Yes.
100%.
There's somebody who believes them.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and there was more info that came out later that he actually wasn't okay with this business deal, and they were fighting.
Well, and I feel like she just made unilateral decisions. That's the vibe, right? Is she just makes unilateral decisions, and he's got to kind of go with it. And he was starting to not go with it. And then she had an affair. So she had an affair with another man, and the two of them were talking about having a life together. And on February 15th, 2022, one day after Valentine's Day, she texted her lover, "If I was divorced right now and asked you to marry me tomorrow, would you?" And she also told him, "I just want to lay on the couch and cuddle you." So she's emotionally checked out, financially completely consumed in what's happening. Both of them are, but she is emotionally checked out, and he is financially checking out, and she doesn't know the extent of how much he's checking out, right? Now, this is the interesting part, Jeanette, and I want your thought on this a little bit. Kouri did tell people she felt trapped. And this is what's interesting. Feeling trapped and being trapped are two different things. So there were options: separation, divorce, bankruptcy, restructuring. Researchers who study intimate partner homicide note that some individuals with this personality structure that we might be dealing with here, that we'll talk about, they don't see their options through the lens of reality, but through the lens of what they stand to lose. And they're so connected to things that to us, like the prioritization would be, I live my life, and so I sell my house, or I file bankruptcy or whatever. But when your identity is propped up with different things, it's a lot more challenging. And so she wanted to leave him, but she didn't want to leave his money. That's what prosecutors later said. So Jeanette, from a personality perspective, this kind of intimate partner piece of the personality structure that gets overly connected to how something looks or feels, what might that be? Not even in terms of diagnosis, although you could go there, but patterns. What do you see in women?
I'm not going to diagnose. I have not ever met her. I'm not going to do the armchair diagnosis here, but perception versus reality of a situation are very, very different. And like you said, there are other options that oftentimes people don't want to even consider, or they don't consider it options. It's interesting because I think a lot of times, whether it's domestic violence or even a dysfunctional family, sometimes we'll stay in situations because we do not want to lose the benefits that relationship has to offer. And with regards to like domestic violence, a lot of times people try to manipulate those situations. And that's when a lot of times it goes sideways. With regards to the personality piece, I think a lot of that is this narcissistic kind of perception of how I want to be perceived.
Mm-hmm.
And, you kind of hit on it earlier with the masks, everybody this one side of things, but what's going on here is totally different. So, yeah, just the entitlement, the self-importance, I'm special, I'm unique. The monetary aspect of it, like, yeah, it's huge. And then there are some of the antisocial
Mm-hmm.
characteristics of like I'm trustworthy and I'm charming and like she was probably a very likable person,
Yes.
at which a lot of people who are offenders are, whether men or female. Yeah.
True. That is
Well,
so
it's
true.
the longer I'm a therapist, Jeanette, and I don't know if you agree with this, Nat, and I've talked about it a lot, the more I see things on a continuum. So instead
Mhm.
of these concrete piles, now we have that because we have diagnosis criteria and all of that, but everyone impression manages to a degree. The question is how much? And we see in men more often this kind of a sexual ownership, definitely can be a financial component to it or a career component. Who's next to me is a reflection of me, right? So I might go younger, hotter, like what, you know what I mean? There's
Trophy wife. Yeah.
trophy wife, right? What's interesting is when divorce, two folks like this feels like annihilation, right? In a man, that sometimes will look very actually like family annihilation. It's like if my family can't look the way I want it to look, I would rather none of us be here.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I can't have you, nobody can. Some of that ownership of like you're mine, this image of our family is what it is, and you're not going to take that from me, right?
Mhm.
What it's interesting about her is it's image, but it just feels it's a little more of a female take on it because it's like I'm gonna make this maybe a tragic story, and then I'm gonna ride in on my white grief horse and I'm gonna cash in because I'm a businesswoman after all. It's just interesting. And that doesn't mean there's not trauma and all of that, driving, but it's just an interesting presentation that shows up a little bit more often in a woman. Or
Yeah.
maybe feels different in a woman. Maybe it's not actually that different. It just feels different.
It's interesting. I mean, there's personality disordered stuff all over this, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that is chaos and drama. And how do I show up in that chaos and drama? And where am I showing up? Am I a victim? Am I a martyr or persecutor? Am I rescuing? Like, what does that look like? And a lot of women, even societally, we perceive women as victims. All of the research shows that if we're looking at, if I told you somebody needed help outside, our heads go to it's a woman.
Yeah.
We perceive women as this victim, and a lot of women actually do manipulate that role very, very well,
Yeah.
using fears, guilt, the poor me, just a whole host of techniques,
Mm.
powering techniques that go with that. And then the personality disordered stuff aligns with that too. And it's usually somebody is not just one or another. A lot of times, like you said, they're on a continuum. So I'm not usually just, I may be elevated in narcissistic personality traits, but I'm probably demonstrating a few other personality disorders as well.
Kind of the cluster.
Yes.
getting into a cluster. And cluster is a funny word for that anyway, because it generally is a cluster in terms of trying to sort out what's going on and how we help and what do we do. But Jeanette, you touched on something so important. Nat and I have shared pretty openly on the podcast that working with female offenders is super controversial. It's really controversial. There's a lot of people who don't think that's a thing. Those of us who actually do the work sitting in the room with women will tell you time and time again, they absolutely can, and they will tell you that they do. So it's really it's challenging to explain sometimes this dynamic that we see in our office when a woman gets real about her behavior. And women a lot of times don't trust other women because of the very behavior that they inflict on their male partners. We just don't like to call that abuse because women are not lethal to the same degree in the same frequency. And so it's just an interesting thing. And you've taught, Jeanette, you are literally the one who got me thinking about this early in my career. And I'm so thankful, early in my DV career in particular. You really helped me understand and make room for the potential of a female primary aggressor. And I don't think that's the majority of the time, but it absolutely happens. Like, I will stand 10 toes down on that all day long. That is absolutely something that does happen.
We'll be right back.
If you work with court-ordered clients, you already know the system can be overwhelming. Documentation, coordination, compliance tracking, billing, on top of actually doing the therapy. That's why we want to tell you about Reliatrax, a one-stop platform built specifically for therapists working in the court-ordered space and voluntary treatment. Reliatrax helps you stay connected with probation and referral sources so everyone's on the same page and your clients get the best care possible without the endless emails, calls, and paperwork. And here's the exciting part. Reliatrax now offers Aura, their new AI assistant. Aura helps streamline documentation, keeps you organized, and supports your workflow so you can spend less time clicking boxes and more time doing clinical work. Reliatrax also supports insurance billing, including Medicaid, making it easier to serve both court-ordered and voluntary clients all in one system. No juggling platforms and no workarounds. And the other amazing thing is you have an actual team of people who can support you, not some automated system. If you're looking for a smarter, more efficient way to manage compliance, communication, and care, Reliatrax was built for this. Check out Reliatrax and see how it can support you, your clients, and the systems you work in without burning you out. You can go to www.reliatrax.com to get started.
Yeah, that's interesting because today in that training we were talking about like if a woman uses a weapon and how it's weighted. And yes, women have been known to use weapons more often as like an equalizer in a domestic violence situation or in a situation. However, most women's abuse is very indirect. It's very, it's kind of scary sometimes because it's more thought out. It's more manipulative.
Yeah.
Except for, and there's different typologies and no one's going to fit into all of this, but you can have a reactive victim, but like a primary aggressor who may use, let's say, a gun is probably going to be more criminally violent in general than somebody who may be reactive and pick up the knife as a means to, because of perceived or real threat. Like a lot of times when I've assessed situations, it's a perceived threat. Like they're like, oh, well, I was protecting the baby, but you got in front of the baby instead of like actually put the baby in harm's way. So,
yes.
So perception can be everything. And along the lines with that, I absolutely hear about the bias of that women can't be offenders. And there's this saying that I'm sure you've heard Don't ever underestimate the power of a woman.
100%.
And along those lines, if you're going to tell someone that they can't do something, watch out, because
Mm-hmm.
they'll probably do it.
We've
Whatever.
been doing
Yeah.
it. Who's the one? Wasn't it oh gosh, it was in our Wednesday episode, but one of our founding fathers who was working on the Constitution, etc., Adams, his wife was like, "Don't piss the women off.
Yeah.
Don't piss them off. Be nice to the women." And he made fun of her, and now we are getting more degrees. We are going to close the gap, and we're starting to run stuff. And I think men will tell you, and I've seen a shift in the last 10 years in what's happening in people's homes, and we are seeing male violence escalate too. So we're seeing more strangulation, more of some of those things, but we're also seeing more female offender behavior. And we know that if women are more violent, men are also more likely to be violent and try to, if we get in a power struggle in a home, it's going to be ugly. And I've seen some really ugly situations, you know?
Yeah, in like some of the risk assessment testing that we do, one of them has like a control scale and a violence scale. And when I'm working with clinicians or writing evaluations, I'm always like, we all have a potential to be violent if need be. Like if put in a situation, any one of us can be violent. But are we looking for that power and control? And sometimes the dynamics behind the motivation is different.
Well, and I will say too, like some of the hardest clients I've ever worked with are women.
Absolutely.
DV offenders. And I mean, I can think of, I mean, it's on one hand, so it's not that many, but I can think of a handful of women who were the primary and predominant aggressor, and they are terrifying. And I
caught in an alley with them.
yeah, no way.
Small or petite bar.
Oh
no.
But I'm just, but I like think of some of these women I've worked with, and I'm like, I think of Kouri, and she would be a predominant aggressor. Now, I do know that they have a history. There's a bigger history behind both of them. I don't know if you're going to get into this, Janine, but he did have some substance abuse issues. So there was speculation around that. So it's not like everything was like peachy keen for both of them. But when I read more about this case, I'm looking at her and I'm like, and she comes off like you're saying, Jeanette, like, she's probably super likable. She seems really sweet. She looks like this active, mom who has 3 boys and then writes this like beautiful tear-jerking children's book about her husband's, her kids, her the loss of her husband, the loss of her kid's dad. And I'm like, man, you would be a predominant.
Well, and one thing we'll see in women's groups, and Nat and I've seen this many times actually over the years, if you have a predominant aggressor, female, in a group with women who've engaged in a little bit more of the reactive abuse kind of a dynamic, they will trigger the shit out of the rest of those women. And it's because the words coming out of their mouth and their demeanor has at times reflected their male counterparts. And it's triggering to some of the women in the room who've been abused by men. We've had that happen. And it's like, oh my gosh, like this, this person who doesn't look overly threatening is creating a lot of discomfort in the room. And they're not yelling and screaming, but the attitudes are similar. So when I hear financial abuse, go take out a big loan and there's no conversation about it because I don't have to, because I do what I want to do. That entitlement that you spoke to, Jeanette.
That's exactly what I think is triggering a lot of the other women is the attitude of entitlement. And just the kind of laissez-faire, like I'm going to do or say what I want. I deserve this. This is mine. I'm going to.
And it's interesting. I'm thinking back on those situations, and it was the finances that sent the women. It was actually I'm entitled to what you have, or it's your job to bankroll or take care of me. And it just, it just did not land with the women. It was really interesting because it was so unilateral. And I think a lot of them had experienced that, where one person is in control of the other. So remember I mentioned on February 15th of 2022, Kouri sent that text to her lover, right? A couple of messages about, if you'd marry me tomorrow, if I could marry you tomorrow, would you marry me? Whatever. So the day before those messages, she brought him a sandwich. And after one bite, Eric broke into hives and couldn't breathe. He told his family he believed she tried to poison him. He survived. He didn't call police. He probably took Benadryl or something. I don't know, but he was like, whatever, I'm okay. But he knew, he had a knowing that had something to do with his wife, that she wanted him gone. And he told his family and he told a friend, if anything happens to me, she's to blame. So he survives. 12 days later, Kouri paid $900 for fentanyl through an acquaintance for a second time. She reportedly said the first pills weren't strong enough. She said the first ones weren't strong enough. This is not a crime of passion. This isn't someone who found his fentanyl stash and was so pissed she threw it in his drink. I mean, this is not what this was. This was absolutely somebody executing a murder plan, evaluating, adjusting, trying again. And 5 days later, he's dead. 5 days after she bought that, $900 worth of fentanyl. The prosecutor's key witness was a house cleaner named Carmen Lauber. She testified that Kouri asked her to buy drugs several times in early 2022, and that she bought pills from a man at a gas station twice before Eric's death, and a third time after. The third purchase after became one of the most damning details in the case. 3 days after Eric died, Kouri texted her drug source asking if she still had her connection. Her husband's body wasn't even buried yet. So they are investigating in the background, right? Finding all of the stuff, the phone lie from the night of the 911 call, forged insurance policy, financial wreckage. She did get a new policy. Nat, I don't know if you have details on that, but there was a new policy.
Yeah, no, I want to say, I'm going to butcher this. I want to say there were like 5 life insurance policies.
And she went out and got those.
Yeah.
Okay.
And forged signatures.
I mean, I don't know what she thought was going to happen there, but always life insurance. That is what Dateline has taught us.
I know, for real. When I heard that, I laughed because I was like, Janine and I always talk about if there are life insurance policies that are opened right before someone dies, it's always the partner. Always.
So, in the digital era, we've said with AI and digital, all the things, nobody's going to get away with anything in the future, right? So, those messages that she was sending and deleting, right? Well, they got the digital record. There were phone searches for fentanyl poisoning and deleted memes. One was accessed minutes after first responders left the house the night he died, reading, "I'm really rich." A jailhouse letter written later attempting to coach family members on their testimony. And cell phone mapping that placed Kouri's phone exactly where witnesses said she was during the drug transactions. So all of this evidence starts to compound. Also, in December of 2021, so a few months before Eric died, Kouri told a friend it'd be better if he was dead. So piece by piece, they're building this big case. There were 40 witnesses, financial forensics, digital forensics, a supply chain traced from the gas station parking lot all the way to the Moscow Mule that she made him, that she put the drugs in. On May 8th, 2023, 1 month after her children's book was featured on a Utah lifestyle show, Kouri Richins was arrested for the murder of her husband. So if you've been following this case, I mean, it was a pretty I don't know. I mean, I think it was a bit of a slam dunk. They had so much evidence. One of the things that the defense said, they cannot tell you how Eric ingested the fentanyl. They haven't done their job. That's what the defense hung their hat on, is like, you can't prove how it happened. But the prosecution didn't need that. They had everything else. So jurors unanimously agreed that both the murder and the attempted murder were committed for financial benefit. Kouri did not testify, which is interesting. The defense called no witnesses. So the 40 witnesses, right, that I just talked about, those were all prosecution witnesses. And the jury foreperson, said of the deliberation room, people were really sad because they did not want to find her guilty. They deliberated for 3 hours. There was never a not guilty check with anything, with any element, nothing. So the jury was convinced, really convinced.
Mm.
So 2 days ago, on March 16th, a Summit County, not Colorado Summit County, Utah
I
Summit
know.
County jury found Kouri Richins guilty on all 5 counts: aggravated murder, attempted criminal homicide, 2 counts of insurance fraud, and forgery.
Just 2 days ago?
2 days ago.
This year?
Yep.
Mm.
And sentencing is set for May 13th on what would have been Eric's 44th birthday. Mm.
God, that
Wild.
is so sad. Like,
It's so sad.
the true victims, one is Kouri, but the children and his
The
family,
children.
that is that loss. And the thing that really kind of resonates with me, and that I see over and over again, and I'm sure you do as well, is that, okay, we have this big picture here of
Mm.
like him telling family all of this, but if you had a gentleman that was arrested in your office,
Mm.
or somebody was telling family that his wife was poisoning him, would you question that?
Mm.
You'd probably question, is he okay? Is he doing
Mm.
drugs? Like, what's
Oh, yeah.
going? And then, but there's also these other 2 situations where he told his family,
Yeah.
like, and switched life insurance policies. And this is really huge. And a lot of times in the cases that I see where women, usually predominant aggressors, are arrested,
Yeah.
men hurting
Mhm.
you. But it's more physical. It's not this covert abuse, which is more psychological and manipulative. A lot of times it's more the physical. So the men will actually record it. Not all. You have to really use a discerning eye
Yeah.
when watching some of the video, but they'll record it so that they will be believed, because men
Mhm.
are believed around this.
I agree with that. I agree with
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And he actually said that he was afraid.
He
Like,
was
he
afraid.
was doing what he could to protect his children, to be preemptive, to protect his children.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And I think we see, when we talk about male violence, we see, and we talk about this in groups all the time, objectification, when the person becomes an object, when the person becomes a mechanism for sex or money, or whatever it is, that they're a mom, a house cleaner, or whatever. You can put somebody in a role, you can objectify somebody to the degree that they become something other than a human being that you're in a relationship with. And I believe that for her husband became a problem. He
Mhm.
was just kind of a problem. He was kind of a drag. He didn't love how she was spending the money. He might have left. He was starting to make some decisions for himself financially, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Probably a resource at first, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
then he started questioning things and said, enough is enough.
Yep.
No, then he became a problem.
Absolutely. And she was charged with 26 additional felony charges that are still pending. Mortgage fraud, money laundering, bad checks, all the things. And women sometimes coast a little bit because a woman has a hard time scoring in the clinical range on the PCLR. they have a really hard time hitting that threshold, partially because women don't engage in antisocial activities to the same degree generally, or have it documented to the same degree. For the same reason that a woman might cry when she gets pulled over for a ticket and get away with it,
Mhm.
they can sometimes talk their way out of things a little bit easier than a man, right? And to have this many additional charges, it's so interesting to look at that antisocial lens in her that kind of came to a head at the same time. That this had been going on for years and years. That she was playing fast and loose with a lot of rules around money and business and all that stuff and marriage.
It's interesting. That's fascinating to me, because if this was a man,
Mm-hmm.
it would say antisocial all over it, or psychopathic, psychotic, like all over it, right?
Yes.
Mm,
Mm-hmm. And we
yeah.
don't assess that super well. It's one of the things I've become pretty passionate about is traits of psychopathy in women, not necessarily full labeling of it, because that's irrelevant, honestly. As a treatment provider, it doesn't really matter. I'm not a parole review board. I'm not making decisions necessarily. I do know that what we write in our reports has a big impact on people's lives. So I try to be really cognizant of that. But this awareness of this pattern in women, we got to treat the antisocial factors. And she had them in spades. So you had the mental health, which was fueling the antisocial, and it just looks a little bit different in women. And I wonder if that's why she was able, if a man is this schmoozy, he gets his spot blown up faster. That's the truth. And
Mhm.
usually it's a woman who does it. We have whole
Mhm.
Facebook pages around, are we dating the same guy, right?
Mhm.
Men and women are a little bit less likely to suspect a woman who's super schmoozy. It might feel a little uncomfortable, but you don't think she's a psychopath who's going to kill her husband, right? So it's just interesting. It's a fascinating case.
Mhm.
So that you
Yep.
mentioned the kids, Jeanette, and the juvenile court has ruled to give Eric's family custody of the boys. Her book, Are You With Me, which is also like such a effed up name. Are you with? I don't know. It's a lot. Like that's a lot to go publish a book. I mean, that's a cherry on top of a real interesting Sunday. But it's been pulled from sale, so you can't even buy her book anymore. Like they're done with that, which as it should be. And Eric Richins was suspicious of his wife. He quietly moved to protect his children. He tried to manage his finances to sort of insulate them from what was going on. And he still didn't make it out. He, as a man, couldn't make it out. Now, why he would drink something she handed to him, I don't know, after having a sandwich that was contaminated. But, you know, I think you can get lulled into a false security again, you know, which again speaks to a woman. Isn't it so like a woman to make you a sandwich that almost kills you and then come back around like 2 weeks later with a drink and you take it? If that isn't like diagnostic in some ways,
Well,
I
and
it
the
is.
crazy thing is he told his family, he said, if I die, like or something like she might be trying to kill me. He
100%.
knew.
He
He
knew.
knew something was up. I mean, like at that point, if you almost died 2 weeks prior from eating something your wife gave you, and you're also saying like she might kill me.
Yeah, but a lot of victims, whether they're male or female, men don't leave relationships for a lot of the same reason women don't leave. And a
Yeah.
big one for the men is that she would probably get custody of the kids,
Yep.
did not want to leave the kids with her in her custody.
Yep.
Uh, he didn't, I mean, they don't want to break up the family.
Yeah.
Uh, it isn't that bad. It can be gaslighting. It can be psychological. She would. I bet you she did, but I have no proof. And like,
Yeah. Well, and I
Oh,
think men too
absolutely.
also feel, I think historically men feel, I don't want to say more, but I
Mhm.
think they can feel more shame than women when it comes to a family being broken up.
absolutely.
And so I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that was at play too, like shame, and because he hung in there with her through a lot of financial mess that a lot of people will not hang around for, you
Mm-mm.
know?
Mhm. Not only is there like the shame and it's an embarrassment of that, if that's actually what was happening, but there's also the I just totally lost my thought. I just lost my thought. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Oh, it's gone.
It happens to me all the time. Apparently I say things now and I don't remember it like literally a second after I say it.
That is true.
It happened to me in group the other day. They were like, yeah, and when you said this, and I was like, I didn't say that. And they're like,
Yeah, like somebody, she goes, did I say that? I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember. We're in the moment here. I don't know. You do you, I do me.
neither one of us remembered. And the group was like, you said a version of that. And I was like, did I really? It was wild.
good. I know that. They liked it.
It was wild.
Well, Jeanette, thank you so much for joining us on a women's case in particular. I know we'll have you on again because you're somebody whose opinion we value in our real world, everyday work, let alone on the podcast. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, we love you so much. And we can't wait to hang out with you tomorrow.
I know. Oh, no, she's not going to be there tomorrow.
Oh, damn.
Boo.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I love you guys. And they are even more fun in person than they are to listen to.
I know. And if you come to CrimeCon, you might get to meet Jeanette because she may come. We'll see. We're trying to rope her in. All right, you guys.
You don't need to try.
We'll have Jeanette sign us out. So as always.
Then you say bye, forensic friends.
Bye, friends. Bye, friends. Oh.
Okay, we'll do it again. Ready?
Okay.
As always.
Goodbye, forensic friends.
That was perfect.
I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more Crime, Psychology, and Heart.